This is gonna be fun. You know, a lot of times we strictly throw big worms or larger worms in the summertime, but it's kind of a tactic, a technique that you can do year round. So today we're going to talk about throwing big worms, big shaky heads for fall bass. In the summertime, that shaky head bite is happening and everybody knows it. Big worms are happening, everybody knows it. You can go out and Texas rig a 10 or a 12 or a 14 inch worm, or you can shaky head a 6 or 7 or 8 inch worm and slay fish out on those breaks. Well, come fall, we start talking about all this reaction. Then come winter, we start talking about finesse. But there's a big chunk of the country, that whole band down there in the south. And you guys down there, not all of you, but a lot of you just are not planning on picking up a drop shot with a 2.5 inch worm on it this winter. And we realize that you're probably not going to be throwing a little tube or a Ned rig. Some of you are. But a lot of you guys are power fishermen through and through, and your water temps never dip below, mid 40s or even low 50s in some areas. So for you guys, something that is constantly overlooked is that bigger profile worm in the cool months. Right here, November, December, all the way into February and March, that bite is going strong and people miss it. We start talking finesse and we're talking little baits, but there's a whole world of soft plastics and worm fishing that has nothing to do with tiny stuff. So what we're going to talk about is literally 3 worms. 3 worms and a shaky head. It's that simple. We downsize everything, and that's one of the fun things about winter. Guys think about cold water and cold outside, and you hear a lot of guys are like, oh, winter fishing, I don't want to do that. I see it the exact opposite. I mean, here we are talking to you in November, and I just had 2 jet skis roll by. I cannot wait for it to drop another 20 degrees out here and blow these guys off the water and give us our just calm, quiet lake back. It's cold. The fish don't pull as hard, but you get your lake back. That time of year, as we get into these cold months, I just said it, the fish don't pull as hard. So you get to drop down your gear. In the summertime, we're throwing that shaky head typically on a 3-power rod. Right now, we're dropping down. We can still throw it on a 3, but you can get away with a 2, which is gonna let you go to a lot lighter line and get more bites. So we're throwing on a 610 medium. It's actually our jerkbait rod. It's a great crossover rod for wintertime shaky head fishing, but any 2-power rod's gonna do it. That's a medium to a medium light is gonna work, because once you stick those fish, you're trying to drive a 4/0 hook. Once you've driven that hook, the fish are not as powerful in the cold water. They just don't pull as hard. So you don't have to worry about that heavy, heavy gear. Drop down in line. Drop down to 10 12-pound line if you're in heavy cover, but 10-pound line if you're not, you're gonna catch more fish. Now the baits themselves, we're gonna keep the baits really, really simple. 3 baits that I've got a lot of confidence in. First one, that Nico worm, Nico straight or the Nico fat. And both of them are a great bait. They're practically the same thing as a swamp crawler. Although I can't believe I just said that to the swamp crawler guys. Please don't be offended. The swamp crawler's still a magical bait. But seriously, those Nico worms, that's a killer bait. I think they came out earlier this year, right? We started throwing those, time blends together, right? Did we start throwing those this spring or last fall? Either way, that is a killer bait. Second one is the swamp crawler. And actually the Magnum swamp crawler is the one we prefer to throw even in the cooler months, because it's not a giant bait. Even the Magnum is not that big. That worm is deadly. We've talked about it before. The following on the Zoom swamp crawler is no joke. There are guys dedicated to this thing, but it works so well and it's inexpensive. You don't have a major investment and you catch a ton of fish on them. And then the third one is cut-tail worm. 5.5, 6.5. Let me pull one of these out of here. While we were out here on the water today, I was throwing a Magnum swamp crawler. Tim was throwing a cut-tail. They were head-to-head. They're both catching fish. Color we keep really simple too, but here's the cut-tail. It's a straight-tail worm. Basically, if you'll remember the old speed worms where they got the hook tail on them, it's almost a speed worm with the tail cut in half. But that's a cut-tail worm. But when you shake that thing, you get a lot of action out of the back of that bait. Color-wise, keep it very, very simple. I would say you only need 3 varieties. Something in the green pumpkin, something in the June bug realm, and something in that black or black and blue realm, and that's going to carry you all the way through winter. You don't have to worry about fine-tuning color this time of year. You just don't need to do it. Then as far as working these baits, 2 different ways to work them. Well, the water's still on the warmer end like it is now. I mean, it's not warm, it's getting cooled off, but it's going to get a lot colder. While you're still on the warmer end, really shake that worm. Be really, really aggressive with it. Just like its namesake, the shaky head, shake that worm. But as that water starts to cool down, when that water gets cold, nothing in nature is flying around in that freezing cold water. The bait fish are moving slow. A lot of the crawdads are burrowed in, but the ones that are out are moving slow. The fish are moving slow. Just slow fish that bait. Stop shaking. Don't be so aggressive. Just pull it and stop. Pull it and stop. That's really all you have to do. And then, rigging a shaky head, if you guys haven't seen that, it's nothing. And guys, we're going to link you the worms, the heads, everything down in the video description, just like always. But this is the head we throw. That's a Canterbury shaky head. It's got a screw lock on it. We do that because it's just so simple. Then a 4/0 hook. Take that screw, put it right in the center of that worm. You literally just screw it on there. Line up. And then you just stab through that bait, right? And I like to go in the cold months because I am fishing lighter line. I like to go all the way through the bait and then just barely skin hook it like that. That way it takes no pressure to pop that hook point back out. It takes nothing at all. It's really easy to hook those fish. A lot of people will go right through the center of that bait and leave that hook down there inside that bait, and it works great, but it definitely takes more force to pop the hook point out. And when we're talking about cold water, dropping down in light line, lighter rods, I prefer that exposed hook. It makes a big difference. Very simple method, guys. You can worm all the way through the winter, and you don't have to be finesse fishing. Now, some of you guys are on those highland reservoirs, you're on those clear water impoundments, it's going to turn into a true finesse game. But for the guys that aren't, shallow water fisheries as a whole are going to have a great larger worm bite all the way through the winter. And you might be surprised on those reservoirs what we'll eat. giant spotted bass, giant largemouth, giant smallmouth will all eat that shaky head. Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it was helpful. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. We will talk to you soon.